Hey guys, welcome back to another video from Commentary from a D-List Black Belt. I know I haven't posted for a couple of weeks now, but I've been in America. But I'm back in Australia now, so I'll be able to do more irregular content. Once again, thank you so much for all your support, guys. We're up to 68 subscribers now. It's pretty exciting for me because well, I like Jiu-Jitsu and I like being able to share it to people. So if you like the videos, please consider giving me a subscribe and a like and a follow, all the rest of it. I'd really like to get to 100 subs. That's a pretty cool benchmark. Now, I have for you guys today... Sorry, thank you very much, guys. I was excited to get into it, sorry. I have for you today just a 1 minute clip between, I don't know how to say his last name, but Dan Manasow and then Nicky Rodriguez. I was scrolling Reddit on the BJJ forum, and that's where I got this video from. And somebody asked like for a breakdown, and I commented that I could do a video on it, and they said yes please. So we've got just like a 1 minute armbar escape for you. Now it was pretty spectacular. I don't know how Nicky doesn't break his own arms whenever he does his armbar escapes, but I get it as well, you know, like is when you train jiu-jitsu and you get into these positions a lot, you can start to recognize your own limits a lot better than not. And also it's kind of like chokes, you know, for those of us that have been choked a bunch, it's harder to choke you. When you've not been choked as much, it's easier to choke you. It's the same thing with arm bars. So when you get arm barred a bunch, it's easier to defend them. So I believe that this is hang on, where are we? Why is this not working for me? Hang on. I'll have to refresh the page, sorry guys. I believe that, there we go, that this is an overtime in a UFC Fight Pass escape. So we're here. We'll just watch the whole thing because it's only a minute long, you know. Start off in the armbar type position, and then they go. And I believe the rule set is who can get out the fastest or who gets submitted the fastest, and then they both have goes at it. And so you can see that was pretty bloody quick. How much was that? Starts at second 15. Took him 3.5 seconds, something like that, to get out of it. So he's out of the armbar in a couple of seconds, and it looked superficially like Dan there. Very sorry, I don't know how to pronounce his last name. Manasow. I'm just going to call him Manasow. It looked like Manasow were breaking his arm, you know. So we'll come back into it. Now, here, we should talk about this every time. This type of positioning. So he's got his legs in. And this is a pretty good lock-up. What I would really like to see, though, is you can see how there's some space in here. So this hand being placed further on the hip would be a good place to start. Now, I should just mention briefly about this leg cross as well, is that when you're doing an armbar at a high level, like when you're taught an armbar, your coach always says, don't cross your feet. That's a no-go. Don't do that. But pinch your knees together. Now, what that does is it allows more torque and control through the elbow because you're like framing on either side of it. So there's a smaller channel for the arm to move in. And if your arm can move up and down, you can rotate. You can escape much more easily. Which is why coaches say, don't cross your feet. I say do cross your feet. Now, the reason why you do cross your feet at high levels is because you should be able to keep these knees pinched together and create that small channel in between the space while also maintaining control over the shoulders. Because what happens, and this is, I think, where Dan Manasow falls down, is he's not controlling the shoulder. So we'll watch it again and you'll see what I mean. So he's not controlling the shoulder, and he leans back, trying to push the elbow off, which allows Nicky Rod to come up. right? And because Nicky Rod's coming up, he's off the ground now, it makes the rest of the escape much more easy. And so I believe that Manaso has gone about this the wrong way in terms of attacking. Now, I understand that Nicky has this figure 4 lock in, but pushing the elbow off and escaping and attacking the arm like this is just asking for the person on top to escape, because now they can move their hips around the outside, they can switch their legs, switch the legs this way and then that way, like what happens if you see. And then because he had no control over the other shoulder or the hip, so the hip like came around the outside, Nicky Rod can push down and then jump over the top. And because he's unwinding the armbar as Manaso is applying the armbar, he's not going to get submitted in time. So this will be hurting in the elbow, but it's not going to be enough to break the arm by the time the hips come over the top, which is what happens. And then because he rolls out of it, where's it gone? You can see that the arm that's being attacked is now bent the correct way, and the elbow is over here somewhere. So now the hips, if they were to apply, just bending the arm the way it's meant to be. So he's out of the armbar now. So this all starts back here. Now, I know you asked for a breakdown of the escape by Nicky, but it's important to note why this escape worked so well and the mistakes that Manaso is making. What should be the case is, instead of pushing and leaning backwards, he should be grabbing the other elbow and pulling it in as he tries to pull his hips in. Because what happens with an armbar, I'll draw it over here. So this is like the thumb. I'll draw it over here on the white so you can see it. This is the hand. This is the thumb. This is the forearm, elbow, upper arm, shoulder. It's a poor drawing, but as you're pulling down on the hand and you're applying torque up through the elbow, what happens is that the force is applied up, up as we see, but force has a tendency of going through the points of least resistance first. Now the elbow is secured, the elbow is secured, the wrist is secured. What will end up happening as you drive up is that the shoulder will rise as well, because the elbow will lock, then the force will travel through the shoulder, and then the shoulder will go up as the wrist is coming down. And then once the shoulder reaches, so thumb, elbow, shoulder, once the shoulder reaches a point where it can't go up anymore, then the force comes back through the elbow to break it. So if you're not controlling the shoulders by pinching them in, so if you're watching me, pinching them forwards and in, you won't be able to break the arm as effectively, and you end up getting like lying all the way back down to the floor. You don't end up breaking it like this here. You end up on the floor like this, and the arm is through the legs like so. Because the shoulder rises, and if you're falling backwards, this is what allows the hips to move, as we saw, and then this is what allows Nicky Rod to escape. So what Nicky Rod's doing to get into the analysis is he's got his figure 4 in like this over the top, and he's underneath the legs, and you can see how his spine is twisted because his hips are already traveling to my right, his left, because he's getting ready to really explode his hips out, because he knows that he wants to be going around the outside, that sort of thing. And because he's getting in preparation of dragging his hips around and then over the top, like so. And so what happens here is they call the go. Immediately what's happening is Nicky Rod's extending and he's rolling his hips to try and do it like a hip escape. But if he's lucky here, because you can see the space, you can see the space, is that the only thing that's keeping him there right now is this arm, is Manaso's left arm. And that's really the only thing keeping him there. So if he can manage to get his bottom shoulder down and out as his top shoulder comes up, he'll just reef his elbow out the bottom. And that's what he's aiming for. Manaso does a really good job of pushing the elbow off the top, but he's unfortunately leaning backwards. And so, to me, personally, I would have liked to have seen him pull the elbow in, and because the rule set also says who's the fastest escape. So you don't necessarily need to submit the other person. You also need to stop them from being able to escape. And so, as always, it comes back to what I harp on about control first, submission second, and Manaso's focusing on submission first, control second, which is always a mistake against someone of the caliber of Nicky Rod here. And so he's falling backwards and he's allowing so much movement rather than dragging his hips in, dragging his heels in, pinching his knees together, and then collapsing over the elbow and pulling it forwards. Because what will happen, if you're looking at me again, is that if the outside elbow goes across, you can see how the hand, the armbar hand, in this case is my left, is now able to be attacked. And so the figure 4 lock becomes much less usable, and also is much tighter and harder to get out of that type of position, And so what will happen is he'll end up with an arm straight before he can even move his hips at all, whereas he's moving his hips well in advance of his arm going straight. And so you can see how what happens here is Nicky Rod's up. By the time the arm pops out, his other hand is pushing the knee off the top of the head. And so now Manaso has no ability to scoop the head and push him back down for the armbar. And so it's going to be a hard ask to get the armbar now, or triangle, because Nicky Rod has the ability to go taller than Manaso, now. And this is a very difficult position. Manaso commits to the belly down. But because, and you see this here, this happened all very quickly, he tries to get the leg back over the head, but Nicky Rod ain't having it. He ducks his head in, and then the hand that was blocking the knee transitions to the other foot to push it down. And without this control, you see how much space there is now. The knees are nowhere near each other. And the angling is all wrong. So I'm willing to bet that, his thumb is pointed down that way somewhere. And he has his 1, 2, 3, 4, and then thumb is down this way somewhere, rather than thumb being up that way with 1, 2, 3, 4, because he's rotating his arm, And from here, this becomes a very hard ask, and really, Rod here has to fuck it up pretty badly in order to get submitted now. And he jumps over the top, just does a forward roll. Now his thumb will be, here, pointing up, 1, 2, 3, 4 on the hands and coming down. And then he's just waiting for his hips to go to the floor, switch them through, do the leg kicks, and then he'll roll up and on top like what we see. Exactly. And now from here, if the roll were to continue, Manaso needs to scramble pretty fucking hard now in order to get out of this. He's fucked it pretty badly. And so it's not necessarily what Nicky Rod did well, even though he did do everything really well. It's more what Manaso did poorly. And the conceptual awareness behind it is Manaso was on the outside of the red track, racing to catch up with the inside of the red track, when in reality he should have been attaching a weight to Nicky Rod and stopping him from moving as effectively. So he was just focusing on the wrong thing, Manaso was. He was focusing on the submission and not the control. But that's sort of my personal belief. I trained with Hodger for a little bit, my coach trained with Hodger for a lot, and that's kind of where that comes from. So I genuinely believe that you shouldn't be trying to get submissions above all else and then risk this loss, because if this roll were to continue, Nicky, his hand's already hunting to the inside, so it's going to be very hard for Manaso to come back to the turtle or whatever. He's just going to rip him down and then take a side control around the outside or take his back, Stands a really good chance of winning now. So the escape was really good. But again, it happens from the hand not being on the hip, and then there's this space in here. And then obviously the right hand not controlling the elbow, pulling it in. And if that happens, the shoulders come together. The shoulders come together, and then it's very, very difficult to move the hips. As we see with Gordon Ryan, whenever he pins people's shoulders, is that the hips don't really matter anymore. And so, coincidentally, what was I going to say? I lost it. Never mind. Nicky Rod did a really good job here. Yeah, and he was. Last thing to mention as well is focus on Nicky Rod's head. Immediately, he brings his head down because he doesn't want this foot up and over the top of it to pull him backwards. And you see how I was right, his thumb's already going down. And so now his elbow is here pointing up, Manaso's hips are underneath it. He's not getting this armbar. It's a very difficult thing to start following. And so Nicky Rod's done this really good thing about just pulling his head down immediately. And then as Manaso tries to go for it, Nicky Rod's already on his bike. So Rod was just ahead the whole time, and I think that was allowed because of that spacing issue and the lack of control from Manaso, which is coincidentally why I don't like going for, I don't remember what I was going to say now, why I don't like going for classical armbars. Because again, if you see my other videos, the points of control on the human body, 1, 2, 3, 4, you're only attached to one and an arm, which is why you should really be trying to finish armbars from like the S mount, controlling the shoulders. Or if you're going to sit down for an armbar like this, or if you're forced to with like this type of rule set, you should be focused on the other elbow and the other shoulder, pulling them in so that you have more control over the top corner, top side of the opponent. Anyway, I hope that breakdown helps. I hope you guys enjoyed it. Thank you so much for watching. Once again, thank you so much for boosting this channel. I really appreciate it. I'd love to grow it some more, so please share it, like, subscribe, etc. It just helps me out. Again, if you have any suggestions or feedback to help improve the channel, I'm always open to it, because I'm not too proud to get help, you know. Thank you so much, guys. Have a wonderful day. I'll see you next time.